Mr. Cross, I think my wife's cheating, the man said. I smiled bitterly. You and me both, pal. I have spent 23 years finding out why love dies. People hire me when trust runs out. They come to my office red-eyed, holding photographs, whispering, I just need to know the truth. Most of the time, I already know the answer before the camera does. I am Daniel Cross, private investigator, 48 years old, divorced once, remarried once, and I have seen every shape of heartbreak there is. Or at least that's what I thought. It started like any other Monday. The city was gray and tired, like it had been crying all night. I was going through some client footage, a husband sneaking into a hotel room, a wife holding another man's hand at a coffee shop, the usual. My phone buzzed. A new case. A man named Ethan Rowe wanted to hire me. His message was short. I think my wife is cheating. Please call. I almost smiled. Everyone thinks that. Still, I called him back and set a meeting for the next morning. But that night, something else happened. I came home and Claire wasn't there. She told me she was having dinner with her old college friend, Megan. Nothing strange about that. She'd done it before. Still, something in her voice when she said goodbye, it lingered in my head. The next day, Ethan Rowe came into my office. He looked exhausted, like a man who'd been fighting ghosts in his sleep. He said his wife, Anna, had grown distant. Fewer calls, late nights at work, too much perfume. I don't want to destroy my marriage, he said, but I can't live in the dark anymore. I nodded. Darkness is where secrets grow, I said. Let's see what the light shows. I said the plan. Surveillance, tail her for a week, record everything. That night, I set up my files at home. Claire was sitting at the kitchen table, reading. She looked up and smiled, that easy, practiced smile I'd fallen for 10 years ago. How's work? She asked. Busy, I said. You love it, though? Sometimes. I sometimes wish I didn't. 3 days into the Rowe case, I followed Anna to a small Italian restaurant on the east side. She wasn't alone. A man sat across from her, leaning in close. Their hands touched once, quickly, but long enough for me to catch it on camera. Nothing new. Another husband about to get his heart broken. But when I went back to the office to label the footage, my mind drifted again, not to Ethan or Anna, but to Claire. She had been smiling differently lately, more carefully, like someone who knew she was being watched. I tried to shake it off. Suspicion is a virus. Once it gets inside, it spreads fast. Still, that night I checked her phone. Old habits die hard. The passcode hadn't changed. There were no messages that looked suspicious, but one number was saved under Megan, work. I knew Megan didn't work with her. Something inside me twisted. I closed the phone and sat there in the dark for a long time. The next morning, I told my assistant, Layla, to handle Ethan's case for a few days. I need a personal day, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You never take those. I am today. And that's how the divorce detective became the client. I started small. I tailed Claire after work. She worked as a graphic designer downtown, a job she loved and rarely complained about. At 6 o'clock sharp, she left her building alone. I followed at a distance. She drove toward the river, parked outside a restaurant I didn't recognize, and went inside. 10 minutes later, a man joined her. Tall, clean-shaven, probably mid-30s. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. They talked for an hour, laughed a lot. No physical contact, no kiss. But when she leaned forward and brushed something from his cheek, that was enough. I took the photo, and I felt the world tilt. I'd caught hundreds of cheaters. I'd seen every excuse, every tear, every lie. But seeing my own wife in that frame, it was different. I drove home shaking. I didn't confront her right away. I told myself maybe it was innocent. Maybe he was a client. Maybe I was overreacting. But the next night, she said she had a late project and wouldn't be home for dinner. So I followed her again. This time she went to a hotel. Room 312. I sat outside in the car for 2 hours. No one came out, no one went in. When she finally left, it was after midnight. She looked calm, peaceful. The kind of peace that doesn't come from guilt, it comes from being somewhere you want to be. I didn't take photos this time. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, watching her drive away. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying our life together. The first time I saw her, the nights we stayed up talking, the promises we made. I'd spent my life proving that love wasn't forever, but I never expected to become my own evidence. The next morning, I pulled all the files on my desk. I looked at them, faces of people who once said, "I do," now caught in lies. They were all the same. Except now, one of those faces was mine. A week passed. Ethan Rowe came by to check on his case. "I found what you were looking for," I told him. He stared at the photos I laid out. "I thought it would hurt," he said quietly. "But it's like I already knew." I nodded. Knowing is different than seeing. I said. He looked up at me. "What do you do when you can't unsee it?" I hesitated. "You decide if truth matters more than peace." He smiled sadly. "Which did you choose?" I didn't answer. That night, I told Claire I had something to show her. We sat in the living room. My hands trembled as I slid the photos across the table. She stared at them, at herself, at the man she was with, and said nothing for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "You followed me." I said, "I had to know." She looked at me, eyes full of tears. "His name is Michael," she said. "He was my first love. We lost touch years ago. He came back to town a few months ago. I tried to stay away." I didn't say anything. She looked down at her hands. "I didn't sleep with him," she said, "but I thought about it every day. And that's just as bad, isn't it?" I leaned back. "Why, Claire? Why not tell me?" She looked down at her hands. "Because you always see lies before you see love." The words hit harder than any confession. She packed a bag that night. I didn't stop her. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it just leaves you alone with the pieces. For weeks after, I went through the motions. Cases came, cases went. People cried, yelled, forgave, divorced. I watched them all, detached, mechanical. Then one morning I opened my office drawer and found her ring. She'd left it there with a note that said, "I loved you. I just couldn't live being your next case." I sat there for a long time, staring at the ring. Then I locked it away in the cabinet where I keep my unsolved files. Months passed. One evening, a new client came in, a woman this time. Early 30s, nervous. "I think my husband is cheating," she said. I gave her the same calm smile I've given hundreds of others. "Tell me everything," I said.
She hesitated. "You ever been in my place, Mr. Cross?" I almost said no, but then I looked at her, saw the ache in her eyes, and said quietly, "Yes, and I still am." She nodded slowly. "Then you'll understand." "I do," I said, "more than you know." When she left, I looked around my office. The rain was falling again outside, just like that first day. The same desk, the same camera, the same walls. But I wasn't the same man. Once, I believed truth was everything. Now, I'm not so sure. Because sometimes, what destroys love isn't the lie. It's the person who knows how to find it.